The wind howled in sharp bursts, carrying the scent of ozone and the bite of cold, wet air. On the roof, under the dim blur of his headlamp, Randy carefully placed his bleeding hand on a cracked shingle. Rain lashed his back like whips, icy and relentless. The clock read 4:12 a.m. His whole body was soaked. Work boots, waterlogged and heavy, hands swollen red from the cold wind and from scraping against the rough tiles. He had just finished a grueling 12-hour night shift at the local power plant. No time to rest. No words of thanks. Just a text from his wife at 3:30 a.m., the roof's leaking. Water's everywhere in the living room. He didn't think twice. He just drove home, grabbed his tools from the garage, and climbed up there like he always did. No complaints. Because he loved his wife. And he loved this house. The place he believed was their home. He managed to patch the leak temporarily. By the time he climbed down, the rain hadn't let up. The dim yellow light from the living room peeked through the curtains, a sign Elaine might still be awake. He opened the door. The cold air rushed in. Elaine was sitting in the kitchen, the glow of her phone lighting her emotionless face. Her dark brown hair was tied back hastily. Her lips were pressed into a flat line, as if annoyed she'd been disturbed. "It's done," Randy said, his voice hoarse from the cold and wind. "It's a temporary fix. We'll need a pro to check it out after the storm." Elaine didn't look up. "Okay." That was it. No glance. No thank you. Randy stood there a moment, then nodded and headed upstairs. Passing the living room, he noticed the water stains on the carpet. He had no energy left to clean it. His head felt like lead. He collapsed onto the bed, still in his damp work clothes. Just a quick nap. An hour at most. There was still more to do. But his body didn't care. He passed out. The rustling sound woke him. His head throbbed. Morning light filtered through the curtains. The clock read 9:32 a.m. He'd slept 4 hours. Standing before him was Elaine, arms crossed, eyes cold as ice. Behind her, Craig leaned against the doorframe, wearing a smug expression. "You're up," Elaine said, no greeting, no smile. "Good. Saves me the trouble. What's going on?" Randy sat up, pain shooting through his back. Then he noticed 3 large trash bags by the bedroom door. The top of one bag was slightly open, revealing his favorite dress shirt crumpled inside. Elaine didn't sugarcoat it. "You need to go. I can't do this anymore. You're dead weight." Randy stared at her, stunned. "What?" Craig chuckled, walking in and tossing Randy's truck keys onto the bed. "Go cry somewhere else, old man. Nobody wants you here." Randy glanced at his wallet on the nightstand. It was wide open and empty. He remembered clearly, he had $200 in it yesterday. "Elaine, what is this?" Elaine pointed to the bags. "You have 5 minutes. Or I call the police." Randy stood up, shocked. "This is a joke, right? After everything? I went up on the roof in a storm last night because of your text." Elaine's face remained blank. "And today you're leaving. I've had enough. I deserve better." Craig blocked the doorway. "You think you're some hero? You're just a loser. Always whining about money. My mom's done with you." Randy looked at the people who were once his family. His voice shook, not from fear, but from heartbreak. He didn't yell. He didn't throw things. He quietly gathered the trash bags. As he passed Craig, the boy lifted his phone to record a video. "He's about to snap, Mom. Just in case he does anything." Elaine sighed. "Get out of my house." My. That word landed like a blade. This house, Randy inherited it from his grandfather. He had paid every cent to maintain and improve it. And now, he stood there with nothing. No home. No money. No family. On the fridge, a note in familiar handwriting. "You're dead weight. Get out." The rain hadn't stopped when Randy sat behind the wheel of his truck, the 3 trash bags piled haphazardly in the back seat. He didn't remember where he drove. Just that the road ahead blurred, either from the rain on the windshield or the tears in his eyes. He parked in the lot of a 24-hour grocery store, where the cold white lights reflected off the glass. He had nothing left. No home. No family. Not even pride. That night, he slept in his truck. The seat was stiff. His neck ached. And the rain tapping on the roof seemed to mock him. He wrapped his work jacket around himself and forced his eyes shut. The next morning, Randy showered at a local gym. The water was cold. The soap was a leftover from a free trial bag months ago. He brushed his teeth in a public restroom and changed clothes right in the parking lot. He still showed up to work on time. No one knew what had happened. Until the third day, when Wyatt, his shift buddy, looked at him closely, noticing the deep dark circles under his eyes. "You good, bro? You look like you got hit by a freight train." Randy forced a smile. "I'm fine. Just tired." Wyatt wasn't convinced. Later that day, when Randy was eating dry instant noodles and sipping water in the break room, Wyatt sat next to him. "You fighting with your wife? Or is it something with the house?" It was a simple question. But for Randy, it opened the floodgates. He didn't share everything, but enough. About being kicked out. About the night sleeping in his truck. About the note on the fridge. Wyatt was quiet. Then gave Randy's shoulder a firm pat. "Crash at my place for a while. Couch is free. You can't live in your truck forever, man." Randy agreed. A few days later, he found a small apartment, run down, low ceiling, cracked windows, but it was his. He started over. From nothing. But he didn't forget. Not the cold stare in Elaine's eyes. Not Craig's smug grin. And definitely not that hastily scribbled note. "You're dead weight. Get out." He pinned that note to the fridge in his new place, as a reminder. Because from that day forward, Randy was no longer a passive man. He was the storm quietly approaching. The following week, Randy took his lunch breaks at the public library, using their computers to start piecing together what he'd lost, and what he might be able to reclaim. It started small, closing joint credit cards, opening a new checking account in just his name, changing passwords. It gave him something to control, something that was his. Then came the conversation with Sabrina, Elaine's cousin. He ran into her at a gas station, and to his surprise, she approached him first. She looked uncomfortable, eyes darting away, but eventually muttered, "I'm sorry about everything." I didn't know she'd actually go through with it. Randy froze. Go through with what? Sabrina hesitated, then blurted, "Elaine's been planning to kick you out for months. She talked about it at every family dinner. Said she needed the timing to be perfect, like after a long shift, or when you were already drained." Randy felt the ground shift beneath him. "The roof." Sabrina nodded. "She sprayed it with a hose. Just enough to look like a leak." He stood in stunned silence as Sabrina continued, "She said you'd come running, just like always. That you'd tire yourself out trying to fix it. She wanted you weak. Vulnerable. Said it'd be easier to get you out that way." Randy clenched his fists, fighting back a storm of rage. Sabrina softened. "She's been hiding money too. Transferring bits into another account." That was the moment something in Randy clicked. The fog of shock cleared. What was left was steel. The next morning, he made an appointment with a lawyer named Frank, a blunt, seasoned man with a sharp eye for paperwork. Randy brought every document he could find. They sifted through them together, and Frank asked, "Whose name is on the house deed?" Randy hesitated. I'm not sure. It was my grandfather's. I inherited it after he passed." 3 days later, Frank called him back. "It's only in your name, Randy. Just yours." Randy gripped the phone so hard his knuckles went white. "You're sure?" "Positive. And under state law, since it's an inherited property and the marriage was under 10 years, it's not marital property. She has no legal claim to it." The storm had arrived. Randy didn't sleep that night. He stayed up building files, statements showing how she drained the bank accounts, screenshots of Craig's posts bragging about their new TV setup and mom's remodel. Pictures of the expensive purchases. All while he was living out of his truck. And then Frank discovered the final blow, a $25,000 personal loan Elaine took out, using the house as collateral. With a forged signature. Fraud. Clear as day. Frank leaned back in his chair, looking almost impressed. "She's in for a hell of a reckoning. You ready to hit back?" Randy looked him dead in the eyes. "More than ready." Because this time, he wasn't patching leaks. He was tearing down walls. Monday morning arrived cold and gray. Randy sat in the passenger seat of Frank's car, parked halfway down the street from the house he used to call home. The same house Elaine had claimed as hers when she kicked him out. Now, justice was about to knock on that very door. At precisely 8:59 a.m., a black and white sheriff's cruiser turned the corner and slowed to a stop in front of the house. Frank checked his watch. "Right on time," he muttered. Randy felt his stomach churn, but his face remained calm. Months of humiliation, of silence, of rebuilding had led to this moment. They stepped out together and followed the sheriff to the door. Craig answered it, shirtless, rubbing his eyes, clearly having just woken up. Confusion crossed his face as he saw the officer. Elaine appeared moments later, wearing a robe, her hair disheveled. The moment she laid eyes on Randy, her face fell. "Elaine Richards?" the sheriff asked. "Yes," she answered slowly. The sheriff handed her a thick stack of documents. "You've been served. You have 48 hours to vacate the premises. All legal details are outlined in the packet." Craig snatched the papers from his mother, skimming quickly. "What the hell is this?" Randy didn't speak. He stood quietly as Frank stepped forward, explaining every line in calm, precise language, how the house legally belonged to Randy, how the forged loan was now part of an ongoing fraud investigation, and how their actions had consequences. Elaine's expression shifted from disbelief to fury. "You can't do this. This is my house. I've lived here for years." "It was never yours," Randy said evenly. Craig puffed his chest. "You think you can just show up and kick us out like dogs?" Randy looked at him, eyes cold. 48 hours. Anything left behind gets tossed. Including that overpriced gaming setup you brag about. Elaine burst into tears, pleading, sobbing, asking for forgiveness. Craig cursed and stormed inside. But Randy didn't budge. Frank nodded toward the sheriff, who reminded them again, 48 hours. "Don't damage anything. Don't remove any fixtures. Everything you bought with his money. Legally his." They left Elaine on the porch, clutching the documents, weeping. That night, Randy sat in his apartment, sipping a cold beer, staring at the ceiling. For the first time in months, the weight on his chest was gone. His phone buzzed, Elaine. He ignored it. Another buzz. Another call. Then texts. 17 in one evening. Ranging from threats to begging. Frank had warned him. Don't respond. Save everything. By morning, there were 47 messages. He responded once, all communication must go through my attorney. Then he blocked her on everything. When the sheriff returned 2 days later, Elaine and Craig were gone. The house was a mess, walls scuffed, appliances scratched, and trash strewn about. But Randy didn't care. Because it was his again. He stood in the center of the living room, surrounded by silence and dust and the echoes of betrayal, and smiled. The storm had passed. And he had survived it. The next few days were a blur of cleaning and quiet reflection. Randy took time off work using his remaining vacation days, determined to restore the house, his house, back to something he could be proud of again. He patched holes, scrubbed walls, replaced broken tiles, and even ripped out the half-painted kitchen cabinets Elaine and Craig had left behind mid-renovation. But what surprised him most wasn't the labor, it was the peace. The silence in the house no longer felt oppressive, it felt earned. One evening, as he was hauling trash bags full of broken junk to the curb, a familiar voice called out from the street. "Randy?" He turned to see Alexandra, Elaine's older sister, standing nervously by the mailbox. Her hands were clasped tightly, her wedding ring twisted halfway off her finger. I hope it's okay I stopped by," she said. Randy wiped his hands on his jeans. "Depends. You here on her behalf?" "No," Alexandra said quickly. "She doesn't even know I'm here. I'm here for me." Randy tilted his head. "What's going on?" She hesitated. "Elaine and Craig, they've been staying in my basement. My husband, Stetson, he's not taking it well. Things are tense. Controlling. Ugly. And I've had enough." Randy folded his arms but said nothing. Alexandra stepped closer. "I watched what they did to you. I didn't speak up. I should've. I'm sorry. But seeing you stand up, get your house back, your life back, it made me realize I need to do the same. I want out. Of my marriage. Of everything." He looked at her for a long beat, then finally nodded. "Come in. Let's talk." They sat at the dining table, still bare, still scuffed from Craig's abuse, but it felt different now. It felt like the beginning of something new. Together, they made calls. Randy contacted a friend who worked with a women's shelter. Arranged a safe place for Alexandra to go. Offered her temporary storage in the garage for anything she needed to move quickly. By the end of the night, her eyes were red from crying, but her voice was steadier than it had been in years. "Thank you," she whispered before leaving. "You didn't have to help me after everything, but you did." "You're not Elaine," Randy replied simply. "You didn't throw me out. You didn't lie." The next morning, Alexandra left Stetson. 2 days later, Randy received a text from her, a photo of her smiling, standing outside the shelter, free. That same day, he learned something else: Craig's car had been repossessed. Elaine's credit cards were maxed out. Friends had stopped answering their calls. And Stetson? After Alexandra left, he blamed Elaine and Craig for corrupting his wife, and kicked them out too. Homeless. Broke. Alone. Randy stared out the window that evening, a cold beer in hand, the sun dipping low over the neighborhood. The house still smelled faintly of old paint and bleach, but it was clean. Quiet. His. He wasn't angry anymore. Not really. There was still paperwork to finish, lawsuits to pursue. Elaine would face consequences for the forged loan. But Randy had already won where it mattered most. He got his life back. He found his strength. And somewhere in the silence of that old house, he rediscovered something he hadn't felt in years. Peace. Some bridges don't just burn. Some. They're nuked from orbit. And some men walk out of the ashes better than before. He raised his beer to the sky and said softly to no one. Cheers.